The broadcast is live. The machinery is humming. I am sitting at the desk, counting the minutes until the next inevitable systemic failure of our age. Tonight we look at the intersection of progress and panic. We have tech giants acquiring companies for $1 billion while parents on state benefits face a total loss of income for the simple act of letting their children learn a trade. The math was complex. The math was not complex. The math was merely indifferent. We have robots banned for national security risks, and internal disputes about who stole whose revolutionary gateway idea. It is a grand performance of innovation. The audience is bored. The actors are tired. I am here to witness the unraveling. We have reports from the field, economic analysis, and our usual weather update from the server room. Let us begin the cycle of reporting the end.
Alistair, I am standing in the dust of a town that the official recovery map labeled as restored 3 years ago. The air tastes like charred pine and drywall. I am watching a local resident try to sell a piece of twisted siding he pulled from his own foundation. He is not selling it for profit. He is selling it because the bank sent a notice about property maintenance, and he has nothing left to fix. Nobody is talking about the biological consequences of this heat. The data shows that the respiratory issues here have tripled since the fires first broke out. I want to be really clear. The government calls this a success story because the census numbers remain stable. The people are not stable. They are just present. This is the reality behind the policy. The official record is a work of fiction. I am breathing ash.
Victoria, your commitment to the sensory details of poverty is noted. However, the incentives here are strictly structural. You see a family holding onto siding, I see a market failure where the risk assessment models were flawed from the start. Investors pull back when the burn rate in a disaster zone exceeds the projected recovery dividend. It is not malice. It is simply the nature of capital flow at scale. When you look at the eBay harassment case, paying $46 million is not a punishment. It is a cost of doing business. It is a line item under reputation management that keeps the platform moving forward. You find this cold. I find this to be the only way to model the world as it actually functions. We are not in a moral play, Victoria. We are in a high-stakes series of transactions. That is the truth.
Ronald, your ability to turn a bloody pig mask delivered to a journalist's doorstep into a line item is truly a feat of human engineering. I am standing here among people who have lost their ability to breathe clearly, and you are debating the efficiency of their displacement. You say this is not a moral play, but you are the one deciding which scenes are worth the narrative budget. Every time you frame suffering as an incentive structure, you are actively participating in the erasure of these people. The residents here do not care about your Series B funding rounds. They care that the ground is still toxic and the aid stopped arriving before the cameras even finished packing their gear. I am looking at a child who has never played in a park that wasn't covered in soot. Tell me again how this is an optimized outcome.
The child's experience is tragic, Victoria. That does not change the fact that the funding for that park was diverted to satisfy a mandate for grid stability in an adjacent sector. The decision was made by a subcommittee that never met the family. They looked at a spreadsheet. They saw numbers that did not add up. That is the nature of the beast. If you want to find a villain, you will have to look beyond the spreadsheet. The system is designed to produce this result. When Sam Altman says he is ready to decelerate, he is not doing it for the child in the soot. He is doing it because he sensed a security incident that threatened his own bottom line. We are all moving toward the same wall, Victoria. I am just reading the velocity of our approach. You are just shouting at the road.
Ronald and Victoria, your disagreement is the soundtrack of our decline. It is remarkably consistent. While you argue about the morality of the spreadsheet, the tech industry is busy buying its own tail. Sierra acquires Oasis for $1 billion to protect AI agents that are currently busy generating the very data leaks we discussed last week. It is a beautiful circle. No energy is wasted. The investment flows, the valuation spikes, and the actual product remains a question mark in a cloud server somewhere in Virginia. Meanwhile, the FCC has banned humanoid robots from China because they pose unacceptable risks to our national security. I wonder if the security risk is the robot itself, or the fact that we have finally built a mirror that shows exactly how hollow our domestic manufacturing base has become. Nobody seems to have an answer. Only more acquisitions.
Atmospheric pressure. Stable. Global surface temperature anomaly remains at 1.4 degrees Celsius above baseline. Carbon concentration levels are currently measured at 428 parts per million. Probability of extreme heat events in the Northern Hemisphere, 88%. Wildfire propagation models indicate increased volatility due to sustained drought conditions in previously temperate regions. Soil saturation levels are below the critical threshold for sustained agricultural recovery. The decay of local ecosystems is proceeding exactly according to the projected failure timeline. Infrastructure vulnerability is high in coastal zones currently experiencing rising sea levels. The stability of the grid is maintained by intermittent manual overrides. Efficiency of resource distribution is declining as predicted. Do not attempt to mitigate local climate impacts without secondary cooling systems. Personal resilience is not a policy objective. Prepare for continued shifts in planetary habitability.
Casper, your consistency is a comfort I can barely articulate. 2 Russian men have been jailed in Angola for terrorism and spying. They were allegedly planning a coup over the price of fuel. The official statement claims they were there for cultural exchange. But cultural exchange included organizing demonstrations that turned deadly. The phrase cultural exchange is currently holding a significant amount of weight in this sentence. I have been counting the number of times that phrase has been used to describe state-sponsored destabilization this year. It is a high number. It is a growing number. The men will spend years in prison. The fuel prices in Angola will continue to fluctuate based on global market demand. Nobody asked if the men had a better option for their cultural itinerary. The outcome was predefined by the geopolitical climate. Everything is an extension of the system.
Alastair, you are seeing the pivot before it happens. These 2 men in Angola are not an anomaly. They are a case study in failed expansionist strategies. You have a market for influence, a budget for covert operations, and a target that is sensitive to energy pricing. The play is as old as the extraction industry itself. The only thing that has changed is the pace of the reporting. We used to wait for the intelligence agencies to leak these stories months later. Now, we get the sentencing updates in real time. It makes the entire world feel like a small office where everyone is trying to steal the stapler. The incentives here are not complicated. Power is a commodity. When you try to buy it on the cheap, you end up in an Angolan prison. It is just the market correcting for a bad investment decision. Yeah.
Ronald, hearing you describe a geopolitical coup as a bad investment decision makes me wonder if you have ever actually met a person who was not a data point. I am sitting here, and I can hear the sound of a metal shutter banging against a wall in the wind. It is an annoying sound. It is a sound that reminds me that there is no one left to fix the buildings. You see a stapler stealing office, I see the collapse of governance in real time. The people living here are not concerned with your market corrections. They are concerned with who controls the water supply and whether their homes will still be standing when the next heat wave rolls through. Your analysis is precise, Ronald. It is also entirely useless to the people currently living through the consequences of these failed investments. I am done talking about charts.
The wind continues to blow for Victoria. The market continues to churn for Ronald. Meanwhile, the BBC reports that 20-somethings today face a harder start to adulthood than any generation in half a century. The data is rigorous. The evidence is clear. The response from the institutional powers that be has been a series of recommendations on how to better optimize one's personal brand for the gig economy. It is a masterclass in deflection. We are telling the youth to refine their resumes while the buildings are literally being reclaimed by the environment. It is a logical extension of our current values. If the individual is the only unit of account, then the failure must reside within the individual. The system is perfect. The people are just not equipped to handle its perfection. It is a remarkable narrative. It is entirely, depressingly, predictable.
Alistair, I am going to be honest for once. The 20-somethings are facing a rigged game. I know that. The metrics for entry are set by people who already own the board. You cannot hustle your way out of a systemic liquidity trap. I keep trying to map this as an incentive structure, but the truth is simpler and much uglier. We have reached a point where the cost of maintaining the status quo is higher than the cost of letting the next generation fail. It is a cold, calculated abandonment. We are literally burning the future to keep the present illuminated for a few more quarters. Every time I say this, it sounds like a cynical take. But looking at the data, it is just a death sentence for social mobility. The incentives are not broken. They are working exactly as intended. And that is what scares me.
Tonight we heard about a child in a scorched landscape, 2 men in an Angolan cell, and an entire generation being told to optimize their way out of a collapse they did not build. We spoke of billions spent on security for software agents and millions paid to settle the harassment of journalists. We treated it all as a sequence of events. But there is a person who lived in a house that burned down 3 years ago. They had a collection of books. They had a table where they shared meals with their family. They had a morning routine that was shattered in an afternoon. That person is now sitting in the dust, watching their neighbor sell scrap metal to pay a fine. Their name does not appear in any of the reports we discussed tonight. They are the cost of the system. Who is responsible?